Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode, 13 now of the All Dolphins podcast, available on YouTube. We are also now available wherever you get your podcasts to download on the Fans First Sports Network. Like I said, wherever you get your podcasts, you will find us there under Miami Dolphins Insider, whatever the name. Doesn't matter. We talk Dolphins, and today we're talking OTA number 2, open to the media. It's actually OTA number 5. So where do we start, Omar? Do we start
Yeah,
with
since you made Mike McDaniels explain why he's cutting camp short for his players, which I told you that was, you show up, you do the meetings, you put in work, even though guys aren't there pretty much in a lot of the sessions that we've been to. And your coach cuts practice short for you.
except
Yeah.
this schedule was laid out long ago. So I don't know exactly what it was that he had seen.
Yeah, that's
As
true.
far as far
That's a
as
very valid point. He filibustered a lot on that question. But he got to the goods, which is they've attended, they've participated, and we're good to go. Um, I am proud of a coach that does that. This is busy work. It's like going to summer school, and you're not doing any real learning in summer school.
Okay,
So
let me interject here because we're talking like everybody knows what we're talking about. What we're discussing is the fact that the Dolphins have 6 OTAs where the CBA allows for a maximum of 10. And here's another important point to make is there are like 4 or 5 teams around the league who also only have 6 OTAs. Among them, unless I'm severely mistaken, if my memory fails me, are the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cincinnati Bengals, 2 teams who certainly have had their share of success recently. So, and again, it's OTAs. Certainly not like, oh my God, the Dolphins are like skipping on 4 practices they could have. It's going to kill their season. No, not that. So anyway, today was OTA number 5. They have another OTA Friday. Next week's the 3-day mandatory June minicamp. Before then, everything is voluntary. So the guys who weren't there, this week, sorry, the guys who weren't there, we did not see today. We did not see last week. Connor Williams, Zach Sealer, both of whom are entering the final year of their contract. They're not obligated to be there.
as are 28 other Dolphins players who
Correct.
26 of them shows up for work pretty much. But I will say this: both are Drew Rosenhaus clients. We all know in South Florida, Drew Rosenhaus loves him some Dolphins. However, when there is an opportunity to kind of twist somebody's arm about an issue, which, a new contract is a kind of an important arm twisting, this is the time to do it. And I say this consistently. You don't want players talking about contract when camp has begun, when they're playing in the exhibition season. That's not a good time. You know when you want them talking about contract and trying to strong arm a team to give them the new contract? Right now, during OTAs, when everything is voluntary. And if I'm Connor Williams, I want a new deal. If you look at the thought process of every player, and I wrote this in a breakdown piece that I recently did, put them in Nick Needham's situation. Yes, Nick Needham signed a restricted tender last year. That's a 1-year deal. I thought he probably shouldn't. I thought he probably should have tried to force to get a multi-year deal. But hey, I'm not Nick Needham nor his agent. I mean,
What kind of juice did he really have? We're going to be honest about it. I mean, Nick Needham's a nice player, but did he really have the juice to basically not sign the RFA tender?
no, he didn't. But I think he should have
Okay.
tried to push the issue and tried to maybe get a deal from another team because he was a restricted free agent and they wouldn't have to give up anything to sign him. Maybe Dolphins don't match. It is what it is. But because he played the season, then suffered a season-ending injury, he's now playing for 1/2 of what he made on the restricted free agent tender. And honestly, the Dolphins were gracious enough to re-sign him because they didn't have to. So,
Oh, but then you know what? No, they didn't have to. No, they didn't. But he's a good player. He's not a great player. I'm not sure he's an impact player or a difference maker, but he's a solid player. He's a solid depth piece. And it would have been like, cutting off your nose to spite your face to say, well, no, you got hurt. We don't know exactly how well you're going to come back. This is what the Dolphins did is, okay, we're going to re-sign you back. It's going to be a prove-it year for you.
Yeah.
And if Nick Needham balls out wherever he's used, whether it's in the slot, whether it's outside, as a replacement guy, as a depth guy, whatever, if he has a big year, he can set himself up to have the contract that maybe he could have had when he was an RFA. But you know this pretty well, Omar. It's who has the leverage. Yes. Is it a question of, does the player need the team more or the team needs a player more? In the case of, we did dealing with, if we're going to talk about Connor Williams and Zach Sealer, I like Zach Sealer a lot as a player. And right now he's dirt cheap. In 2023, I think he's, what is it, 3 million maybe? Is
less than 3 million
cap number?
Yes. But Connor Williams is making 7 million, and I would be strong arming the team. Yes, I'm an important player. I'm your second best offensive lineman. I had a phenomenal season at center, making a position switch. I want my money. What? Third?
You think Connor Williams is better than Robert Hunt?
Yes, absolutely.
I know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Disagreement number one of the show.
Oh, there will be.
We're going to keep counts. I'm going to guess that's not going to be the last one. I take Robert Hunt over Connor Williams, but that's just moi. Okay. I think the fans probably don't necessarily want to dive
squabble
too much
about guys who don't show up for practice.
Correct.
Their money.
As opposed to what did we see on the field? I guess good place to start. I had somebody ask me on Twitter, who would I give the orange jersey to? And I told him, let me think about it. And when Omar and I will discuss, and I'll throw out a couple of guys who really jumped out. The one who jumped out the most is Mitchell Agude, the rookie UDFA. Except we did, again, with the nature of these practices, if you get a defensive lineman who really hustles and gets off the ball really fast, and the offensive linemen are not supposed to have like a ton of contact, there's not a ton. Advantage defensive line. If you remember, Jalen Phillips used to take advantage when Jalen Phillips was balling out like crazy, going all out in his rookie camp against offensive linemen who maybe weren't quite as close to game speed as he was, and he was getting his butt in the backfield. That's what we got from Agude. Robbie Chosen had a big game as a big day for me. Kader Kohu looked very impressive in coverage for me.
Who you got? Who else you got?
I think it was Noah had a pick. I mean, I'm going to mention Noah.
Braylon Sanders, and with a beautiful pass from Skylar Thompson, probably the pass of the day for a touchdown. Cam Smith had a knockdown deflection. I like what I saw from Raekwon Davis. But you're right. Mitchell Agude, that's the second straight practice that I've watched that he's flashed. And yes, it doesn't help that he's got nobody really working at left tackle that's respectable, that you got to actually, concern. If he was doing this against Teron Armstead, we might have something here.
This is where we mentioned that Teron Armstead wasn't there today, wasn't there last week. He's not going to be there next week at the mini camp.
He's not practicing all of training camp.
No, Mike, well, possibly not. Although Mike McDaniel said today that all indications he's gotten is that he will be ready for the start of training camp.
He also
exactly
said
how much work he's going to do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he also said that about Byron Jones last year. So,
wow.
Okay. Am I lying?
No, he said Byron Jones was going to be ready for the start of the regular season. Was all the indications he had. That was the comment he made. But no, and even I don't recall Teron Armstead practicing a whole lot during training camp last year.
He'd take a series with the first team, probably week 3 and week 4 of camp. He'd do position drills and then take a series. I don't want Teron Armstead like bubble wrap him till the regular season.
Agreed.
And we can figure that out then.
Agreed. Okay, so one guy my vote's going to be. I don't know. Mitchell Agude. I have to go Mitchell Agude.
I would have to go Mitchell Agude as well. I doubt they're going to give it to him because you don't want to, hype up the rookies. But I was very impressed, and this is the second straight practice. I'm very impressed. I walked away with him being one of the top guys that caught my attention in the first practice. And I liked him in rookie camp, and there's just a quick first step to him that's very impressive. You know who he reminds me of? Oh my God, I can't remember the guy's name. I'll tell you in a second. He was an undrafted player. He got in a fight with Ryan Tannehill over practice squad over McCain. Chris McCain.
Chris McCain. Oh man, and I know you liked Chris McCain when he was with the Dolphins.
Oh, I loved Chris McCain. Don't act like he wasn't creating pressure and sacks, and yeah, he was a little bit off balance, but
yeah, and that's why it never panned out. He was always the type of guy where you're thinking, "This is the year it's going to click. This is the year it's going to click," and it never clicked. No, and he looks the part too. He's like an edge defender, like a blitzer off the edge, and he definitely looks the part. What else fit out? We're going to talk about. Okay, let's talk about QB1 because everyone's going to want to know about QB1.
Uno.
What did you think?
Uno.
What did you think of his day?
It was an average day for Tua, which means I don't really pay that much attention to it, and that's a good starting point. I don't. If he has a bad day, that's something that I'll notice. If he has a phenomenal day, that's something that I will notice. My standards for Tua is I expect him to, if they're doing red zone work, I expect him to score touchdowns. I expect one long bomb per day. I expect at least 2 20-yard passes per day. And he delivered that. The Chosen Anderson pass, Robbie Chosen.
Robbie Chosen, yeah.
I found that as my top observation from the day because I watched him get open last week and the quarterbacks weren't connecting with him. Obviously Tyreek Hill wasn't there today again. And really I didn't see Jalen Waddle was there, but he didn't really get that much work in. So Chosen Anderson got a lot of opportunities with Tua. And he delivered on the deep ball and showed the speed. I saw that the first week he was open. And this week split 2 defenders, Elijah Campbell and Vernon McKinley, and really was wide open. The ball was not a dime. He had to wait there.
That's Omar saying that, not me. Omar saying that, not me.
It was but it would have been catchable in an NFL game. I mean, it was not an ugly pass. It would have been a 50-yard gain in a real NFL game or a pass interference call. So, I'm not going to sit here and every pass does not need to be perfect from Tua. The accuracy is there. The decision is there. The quick trigger is there. I watch practice and I really just want to see him either get rid of the ball or not take sacks. That's on a daily basis. That to me is the bar.
Yeah, but he's not taking sacks, and there are a couple of times when guys got right next to him and he wasn't taking sacks because it's practice and the guy stopped. And I'm like, you remember what I said last week? I'm the guy, I hate the extremes of one or another. And maybe it's because it's been pounded so much by some members of the media where every little thing he does is like, like the 50-yard pass to Robbie Chosen was fine, but it was fine. It was a floater where the play was made by Robbie Chosen, easily beating the 2 defenders and adjusting to a pass that wasn't in stride. Okay. It's a 50-yard completion in the books, but let's not pretend. Again, Omar said it was fine. Let's not pretend like it was this dart 50 yards on the field.
Oh no, it was not a dart.
Always the issue here.
But maybe and I didn't see because they were on such a far field that we couldn't see everything perfectly. But maybe Tua was thrown to a space. It was 2 safeties. I don't know where his cornerback was. Maybe Elijah was playing cornerback. And maybe Tua threw it to a space where he thought Robbie would be. I don't know. I couldn't see the field like that. But it was a pretty pass. It was one of 2 pretty passes in practice. I'm not going to sit here and hash about whether it was in stride or not stride, or did he lead him enough? Just like Tua said, just like Tyreek Hill said, he could throw that ball and, Look like money to me. That was a Tua quote. Look like money to me.
Yeah, see, and then it looked like money to me. It was a long completion. The one that looked like money to me was Skylar Thompson.
That was money.
It was about as long, maybe a little shorter, like in stride to Braylon Sanders, who had gotten behind the defender, not nearly as much as Robbie Chosen did.
Okay, correct. That's fair. Those are all accurate statements.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying
Thompson, that. And Skylar Thompson threw a beautiful pass, and I'm going to say it right now. Don't count him out for the number 2 quarterback. For the second straight practice, I looked at Mike White's arm and was like, I don't know about
but and I will say this. No, I agree with you. And there were a couple of throws that Mike White is, and the long passes down the field or near the sidelines take too long to get there.
Yep.
He did have one, though, where the timing has to be perfect. Otherwise, the DB is going to cut in front and pick it off or bat it down. There was one, I think it may have been to Cedric Wilson Jr., where the timing was great and he got it on the cut and the DB couldn't do anything. And there was one other one that we're going to be fair about this. There was one play where he fumbled the snap, picked it up, and then he lobbed the pass again to our good friend Robbie Chosen. He basically teardropped it over the linebacker who wasn't that far away from Chosen, right into Chosen. That was a beautiful throw. That to me actually may have been.
He did have some solid throws, and he looks like a player. And I was having this conversation with Joe Rose at practice, who's doing the Joe Rose show while we were at practice. But I was having if his footwork is off, you might be in trouble. Yeah. It's got to be perfect. If his footwork is perfect, you don't have to worry about the pass. But you're not going to be in perfect situations all game, every game. But then again, Josh Allen has the same issue. And he's got a can.
No.
Oh, yes.
Come on, man. Josh Allen can make up, not always, but can sometimes make up for bad footwork because of that rocket that he has. There are other quarterbacks, including QB1 in Miami, whose footwork has to be precise. Otherwise, the ball's not getting there.
That's fair. But also, Josh Allen, his inaccuracy that has been a case since Wyoming days can flare up on him if his footwork gets off, and those passes aren't as accurate. Now, he does make up for it with the arm, but sometimes those rifle passes are inaccurate and not at the right spots.
Well, but he's improved a lot. And if we're going to be fair and thorough, if you remember the 4th down incompletion last year, in the game in Miami in September, he had a guy wide open in the corner of the end zone, and his feet never got set. He was like completely discombobulated when he threw the ball, and he basically short hopped the guy because he never got his body into the throw, and I guess wasn't able to make up for it with just the arm. So yeah, there's some mechanical flaws with Josh Allen, more so than there are with a lot of other quarterbacks. Certainly Tua is a lot more mechanically sound than Josh Allen, but Josh Allen makes up for that completely crazy athleticism. So anything else on the quarterbacks? I hate picking on the dude, James Blackman. If anybody's hoping we'll do the Dolphins have a hidden gem there? No, they don't. They have a camp arm. Let's be honest.
Yes, and as something that I thought last week when I watched it, I think they should start investigating and shopping for another camp arm or target. It's just not, those snaps in practice are, in my mind, are wasted snaps, and I can't afford that. Nice story, nice guy, great tryout. You're getting your $1,600 a week for practicing. I'm sorry, but if I'm taking you to training camp, you better be delivering, or your stay is probably not going to last longer than 2 weeks.
No, that's fair, because my initial reaction was like, Omar, come on, man. We're talking like 3 snaps during but then if there's somebody else that you can find that maybe has something, that's fair.
That's 3 opportunities to evaluate these backup tight ends, or 3 opportunities to evaluate how Mike Gillislee, Mike Gillislee. That's what I think of when I think about Myles Gaskin.
Okay.
You got Savon Ahmed. You got to be able to evaluate those guys. You got to give them a chance. And
you mentioned Savon Ahmed. I'm sorry, but I still look at him and I can't tell whenever there's a play and there's short, really fast running back down the field. I still can't tell whether it's Savon Ahmed or Devon Achane. And I'm like, isn't that kind of redundant what they did there?
No, because Devon A-Chain is a lot faster than Savon Ahmed. Not, not to say it's going to make a huge difference because we don't know, but that guy's fast, man. That wheel route, that end around,
Have we not seen
cool.
Savon Ahmed do the same thing though?
We have
Okay.
in shells and pajamas. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Funny.
Yeah, I mean they are pajamas.
Right.
Um, you're absolutely right, and I've always looked at Savon Ahmed and thought, man, this guy could do more when we're doing OTAs and there are no pads, and then when pads come on, he disappears. He does a vanishing act.
Didn't
So
disappear at Buffalo last year.
that's true.
Okay.
Hey, listen, young, I think he's got talent. I mean, he started his rookie season for the Dolphins, a couple of games. So there's a reason why he's still here now. But let's get on the young Texas A&M's a chain. 2 plays in practice were 20 plus yards. While you say OTAs, no pads, but think about if you take that to a game, you get 40 yards off a guy off 3 touches.
Okay, time out. Time out. Number one, I know the 2 plays you're talking about. One of them is a running play where guys are not tackling. They're basically getting in the way and touching with the arms. There's no tackling. That's number one. The other play was the wheel route down the left sideline on a play where I looked at my notes after the fact. It was like
sack?
Mitchell Agude sack. And then basically they continued the play. So
yeah. I mean, you saw the ability. You saw the ability.
No, I agree. My whole point is obviously we'll find out when the regular season arrives and we see how things play out. But the pick at this point still feels redundant to me based on what you had on the roster.
That's fair. And if you go get Dalvin Cook, it's absolutely redundant. And you probably should have addressed your tight end position. And I still think you probably should have addressed your tight end position. With that,
what did we see there? I saw Elijah Higgins drop a pass on the middle. I didn't see Durham Smythe targeted one time in the passing game. In the running game, again, the running game right now is basically getting in the way because they're not really blocking hard and they're not tackling. Right. Tanner Connor caught 1 ball, but I still haven't seen anything yet like I saw last summer.
Elijah Hill was the top performer.
Who?
Elijah Hill. Julian Hill.
Dude, he had like a false start. He had like 3 different mental mistakes.
Balls, though.
He what?
He caught balls though.
Okay, but he had like a false start. He had 1 play where he got in motion at the same time as a veteran got in motion, and it was clear it wasn't
learning the offense.
But as somebody likes to say, let's not pretend he was a complete stud today.
No, he wasn't a stud. He made absolute mistakes, but I thought he was Elijah Higgins. I was like, well, look, and then I had to look at the numbers. 89, because we were working from such a far field. 84 and 89 looks the same, but I initially was like, oh, look at Elijah Higgins, he's making plays, and it was Julian Hill, who a guy from Campbell that I don't know nothing about, but we'll continue to see if he flashes, if they make plays, but is tight end. There are 2 positions that I'm concerned about looking at this team and looking at this roster. Tight end happens to be one. I'm not so much concerned about offensive line and offensive tackle because they've got so many guys there. I mean, they added 3 veterans with probably over 100 starts. I think they were like at 120 starts. Dan Feeney,
Win and Cedric O.
Yeah. Like they're like at 120 starts between them. Like, and that doesn't even include Kendall Lamb and Jerron Christian. Now, am I saying that all of these guys are going to pan out and do well or address the need? No, I'm not saying that. But there are bodies who have started NFL games. So I'm all right. I'm all right there for now. And we'll see how this thing progresses when pads come on. But tight end, yeah, I'm not good there. And linebacker.
I know what your other one. And no, and I'm not good with tight end either. I know what your other one is. Go ahead.
It's linebacker. I've become obsessed with linebacker. 1, because they're small. 2, because you've got to transition a guy to play the position. And really, if we're going to be honest, he's an outside linebacker. Now, he might be able to fill in, and I'm talking about Andrew Van Ginkel. He might be able to fill in as an inside linebacker. But if you're Bill Belichick, aren't you attacking him for a game? If you're Bill Belichick.
Yeah, but you're also going under the assumption that that's a done deal, that he's going to play strictly inside linebacker. No. I kind of get the feeling they're experimenting to see what they might have with him at inside linebacker, and he very well may end up being at the edge. And it could be, because you and I have talked about this, that right now, if they do move Van Ginkel to inside linebacker, they could use another edge. And there's a ton of veterans on the market right now, including Melvin Ingram and Trey Flowers, who are with the
inside linebackers on the market right now, too.
There are a couple of inside linebackers. And so it may be that if they decide, now let's just keep Van Ginkel on the edge, then instead of going after a veteran edge defender, they're going to go after a veteran inside linebacker.
I'm not comfortable with that position. When you watch practice and you don't see David Long Jr. because he's rehabbing whatever he's rehabbing, after being injured in December, it's now going to be June, 6 months, you start to wonder, what did the Titans know that the Dolphins don't know? And also on top of that, it's kind of tiny.
He's not big.
I went into, because I was watching, that was the first time last week to see him. And I remember looking at Aubrey Miller, who, the Jackson State player who didn't get drafted because he was too small for the position, allegedly. And then I'm looking at David Long Jr. They're about the same size, if not David Long Jr. smaller. Now, mind you, he was drafted, and that a lot of that is about on his ability, his read recognition, his pass coverage skills. So, man, those things better show up when we start to see him practicing, because right now, I'm concerned. How many games is he going to miss? And when he does miss games, Duke Riley's going to have to step up. How much does that water down your defense, and how much does that water down your nickel package? Duke Riley steps up in the starting lineup. Who comes your nickel linebacker? Is it going to be Channing Tindall? Like, is that really what you're doing? Or are you going to be sitting here leaning on Aubrey Miller or some undrafted rookie?
Vanderberg, yeah.
Like, what are you doing? What are you doing at that position?
And I could take it a step further and say Jerome Baker's a fine player, but is he a difference maker? I don't know. And this is a position where, as you and I have talked about this before, it's been a while since the Dolphins had like a really impact player. And I go back to last year, like the Bradley Chubb trade was great and all that. I would have liked them to get Roquan Smith, if we're going to be honest about it. And then to talk to folks in Baltimore and ask them the kind of difference he made for that defense, which the Dolphins torched in week 2 and really wasn't playing great. Then they made that trade, and all of a sudden that defense started playing a little bit more like the Baltimore defense we're used to. And then they signed him to a huge contract in the offseason because they were like, oh yeah, that guy's a keeper. I mean, the dude can play.
I mean, it's not over. And as I said, there's so many. There's Anthony Barr, there's Rashad Evans, there's Miles Jack, there's
Quan Alexander.
There are so many inside linebackers that are available out there right now. There's no rush. The Dolphins always sign somebody before always look at their roster, evaluate, and sign somebody a week before training camp opens. So I'm a patient man, but you can't look at that unit and be like, we're good. Like, there's no way.
No, I agree. And this is a defense that got like a lot of star power, but it's in the back end. And if it's on the front line, if you're counting the edge defenders with Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Christian Wilkins, who does have some star power. And in the back end, you got Jalen Ramsey, Javon Holland, and X. But in the middle, no. And as I said before, been a while since the Dolphins had a really impact linebacker. And I watched Zach play for like a decade or so, and it was like,
is that your last impact linebacker?
I know you're gonna mention what's his name,
Carlos Dansby.
Carlos Dansby, yeah, he was in that neighborhood.
Kiko Alonso was pretty decent.
Who?
Kiko Alonso. Well, how quickly we forget this.
No, Kiko Alonso had one great year where it seemed the ball would find him. I mean, he was in the bathroom, the ball would find him in the bathroom. I mean, it was completely ridiculous and it's funny because I saw some of the interaction on Twitter, somebody talking about Kiko Alonso. Kiko Alonso got hurt. His body just broke down. And he was in, if I recall correctly, He came to the Dolphins with an injury history. He left the Dolphins after having dealt with injuries. He went to New Orleans, dealt with injuries. I think he was traded or signed with somebody else, and then injuries again. And then I think he's been out of the league for like a couple of years already. But no, he had one of those perfect storm magical years in 2016 where he was a big part of the Dolphins,
that trade with the Philadelphia Eagles probably might be one of the worst trades in Dolphins history. There have been some bad ones where they got Byron Maxwell and Kiko Alonso in the same trade.
Do you know what they gave up for that?
Like a swap of first-round picks?
Dude, what are you talking about? They got Byron Maxwell and Kiko Alonso, and they swapped going down from 8 to 13 in 2016, where they wound up with Laramie Tunsil after the whole Bong thing.
It don't matter. You still went down from 8 to 13.
That's not a great. You got a starter who was a major.
You got lucky, and then you cut.
Did get lucky, but doesn't matter.
And then you cut Brent Grimes just to make room for Byron Maxwell.
Omar.
Yes,
man, my friend, my buddy, my pal. I think we know damn well why the Dolphins cut Brent Grimes.
Because
it wasn't considerations. Come on.
He forced his way out because he didn't want to be there. Or Miko forced his way out. Yes.
Okay, let's say it was personality conflict with the organization.
No. They wanted to be cut. The Dolphins tried to trade him to Arizona, and they were like, "Nah, we're not trading. Cut us. Like, we're not being subjected to a trade." That was, but here's the thing. You're masquerading, like, instead of trying to make it all good with the Pro Bowl cornerback that you had, you're trying to force Byron Maxwell in his ridiculous contract down our throats. Remember how bad he was? Do you remember how bad Byron Jones was?
Not early on. Early on, he actually was playing well, and then it got worse. And, dude, they don't win in 2016. They don't make the playoffs in 2016 without Kiko Alonso.
Yeah, I'm just saying he's the better end of that trade.
To move down 5 spots in the first round, and you still wound up with Laramie Tunsil, who was
5 spots in the first round. The value of that, I remember the value of that draft pick was like still a late first round selection to move down those spots. I was like, no. Like you got had by the Eagles, which have now won, which have won championship on the backs of your picks, and you taking on.
Do you remember what the Eagles did with that pick?
No.
Okay, because they maneuvered it and they wound up with Carson Wentz.
He was a good quarterback for a minute. He didn't win a championship. Nick Foles won the championship.
Well, he kind of led them. He was having like an MVP type year in 2017.
I remember when we did the joint practices up there.
That was 2017, his second year.
He was good.
He was good.
Nick Foles.
And then it went south pretty fast for Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
No, I have. Yeah, this is good. I think we're at 2 now. Disagreement number 2. I think that was to move down from 8 to 13, pick up 2 guys who were starters on a playoff team, and 1 guy who probably would argue was your defensive MVP. Yeah, that's a pretty good trade.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. It was all right trade, but just bad business. Just bad business. Figure out a way.
But then you
took a bad contract. You knew you took a bad contract. Why do that, Byron Maxwell?
Because that's that was the price to get. I don't know if it was
a bad contract and an injury-prone linebacker that you had to restructure his deal. Like, come on, man.
You don't make the playoffs without that trade in 2016.
Probably could have made the playoffs without making the trade too.
Again, there were 2 defensive starters on the playoff team, including the guy who I would say probably was your defensive MVP. So no, I have no issue with that trade. But now, and remember where they were in 2016 when they made the trade. They were coming off the year where Joe Philbin got fired. They were 5-11. They were starting over with Adam Gase. So the circumstances were different than they are now. They're in a different place. And let's bring it back to this year's team. They're in a different place. As we begin winding this down, where are you in terms of where the Dolphins are through the OTAs? The next time we see them, they're done with the OTAs. Are we happy where they are?
Last year, and I vividly remember this, I was very critical of the offense because it was kind of and all throughout OTAs and mini camps. And then we showed back up, and maybe it was just the days that we were out there, because I thought maybe Mike McDaniel went vanilla. But we showed back up the next OTAs, and then all of a sudden Tyreek Hill is in motion every single play and is delivering chunk yard. And I'm like, whoa, Nelly. And so I'm not getting – I think Mike McDaniels has already proven that he can call passing plays. What I want to see and how I will evaluate his development and his progression is, can you jumpstart that run game? Because I've always believed that the run game and that balance is what's critical for NFL success.
And yeah, but what I would tell you there is, I think the running game was fine last year. He needs to not default to the passing game as quickly as he did last year. And that's going to take a whole lot of discipline and self-control, because again, you got those two jackrabbits outside, and then you, on top of that, now you had Robbie Chosen there. Because I'm with you, I'm on board. I think that's a really nice pickup.
You are?
I'm on, okay. Absolutely. And first of all, I never fought you on it, but I'm completely on board, and I like the top four they have with Braxton Berrios as well. I feel bad for Cedric Wilson. We talked to him today. He's a really nice guy, but he's kind of a man without a role. I mean,
you get a role when you make plays. He doesn't even make plays.
Well, he would tell you, I made plays in Dallas in 2022.
No, you were the fourth guy. 2 injuries happened. You came out. You got yardage on a bad team.
Made the playoffs. They weren't a bad team, but no, I agree. But I see him right now. He's no better than the fifth receiver on this roster. You can't trade him unless you're willing to eat some of that money, because nobody's guaranteeing him $5 million.
I'd eat the money. I'd eat the money and unload him. Is he better than River Craycraft? No.
And then you got Eric Ezukanma's got to fit in somewhere. I mean,
no, I like. Absolutely. I've seen way more plays from Eric Ezukanma than I have seen from Cedric Wilson. Like I watched him last year, and I was just like, there's nothing there. And I'm still saying there's nothing there. Like, is he going to be in slot? Is he? They need a guy with size. Is he that guy? No, not really.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, he's a fine 3-4 wide receiver, and he had a decent year with Dallas in 2021, and then Dolphins gave him a contract that's kind of rich for my taste the second they gave it to him, and that was before they traded for Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden, and then Trent Sherfield outplays him in training camp, and it's like, that guy's like got no role, basically.
A lot of people outplayed him in training camp. Don't just single out Trent Sherfield. Just about everybody outplayed him.
No, but that's the guy who became the third wide receiver, which is kind of like, once the Dolphins traded for Tyreek Hill, you kind of figure, well, there you go, Cedric Wilson now is going to slide into that number 3 role. That didn't happen. And I'm going to wrap it up here with my one point, because you mentioned the tight ends. I'm of the opinion that the way this offense is built, and with the speed they have at wide receiver and the numbers they have as we're talking right now at wide receiver, I don't know that they don't need George Kittle at tight end. They don't need Travis Kelce at tight end. Hell, they don't even need a Mike Gesicki receiving tight end for this offense. Just catch the ball when your number is called, whatever. If you make
run around and catch the ball. Yep, and go down.
And then do your job when you're called on to block for the running game. So that's why I don't think they're stressing out. And that's why you didn't get like the first round pick. So we're going to have to wrap it up. He is Omar. I am Poupart. This has been the All Dolphins podcast. Remember, you can find us also on YouTube, and you can find us on the Fans First Sports Network, wherever you get your podcast.